How's
Boom.
that?
Good. I'm very excited about your fight, man. Very excited.
Not as excited as I am to be here.
I'm sure. How often is it that two undefeated, I mean, you're not a heavyweight champ because they stripped you, but you never lost. Two undefeated heavyweight champions go at it like this. This is a huge fight.
Very much so. It's never, ever happened before, ever.
It's pretty exciting.
Someone too as big as us, I've never, ever fought each other.
What do you think of, I mean, for people who don't know, you're fighting Deontay Wilder, who's an American undefeated knockout artist, and you are probably one of the more interesting guys in the heavyweight division, not just because your personality, but your skill set, the way you move. You're long and tall, but you got great footwork and you're fast. You know, it's a very, very interesting fight as far as like boxing technique.
It's power, raw power versus boxing skill. Two guys, one 6'9", one 6'7", both charismatic, both talkers, one British, one American. It doesn't get any bigger than this. This is the biggest fight that could be made at this time in the heavyweight division or in the world of boxing.
When you watch Deontay Wilder move around, there's nobody that moves like that guy. So odd. Like,
it reminds me of Bambi on ice. He doesn't really find his legs underneath him.
No, sometimes he throws and he's got no legs underneath him. He's swinging and literally he's flying through the air as he's punching.
I've seen him fall over a few times as well.
Yeah.
But listen, the guy tries to land that big punch, and
yeah.
when you're trying to knock people out with every single punch, then if you miss, it becomes a problem and you go off balance and maybe fall over.
Yeah. Were you impressed with him in the Luis Ortiz fight?
I was impressed with him because he came back.
Yeah.
And he was losing all the rounds. I only gave Wilder the rounds that he knocked Ortiz down in. So he done well. It was his acid test, so to say, come through. Ortiz is 49 years old, albeit albeit he was past his prime age, but still undefeated champion going in. So it was a great victory for Deontay Wilder, and he proved to me that he can come back, get hurt, come back and win a fight.
Yeah, and Ortiz comes from that Cuban system. He's got great skills. I mean,
yeah.
And he's looked fantastic in every single fight other than that fight, up until that moment that he got hit.
Yeah, look, you can't go swimming and not get wet.
Yeah.
Ortiz had over 300 amateur fights, 20-odd professional fights, nearly knocked them all out. But if I may be critical of Luis Ortiz at this minute, he stood in front of Deontay Wilder right in punching range, which is not a wise decision considering a guy's had 39 KOs.
Yeah.
And his movement, he was trying to move a little bit, but he was on old legs. And I know a story what happened before that fight. Luis Ortiz had very bad blood pressure, and the doctor was going to pull him out, and he had Charles Martin on standby. But he said, no, I need the money. Really? So he went in and fought anyway. And he still nearly beat Wilder.
He had high blood pressure. That's interesting. Where are you hearing this from?
Good sources.
Good sources.
Yeah.
Those are the best sources.
Always the best. Inside info.
You're an interesting story, man, because not just because of your personality, but because you've come back from mental illness and you're very, very open about it.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a very unique thing. Right? I remember when you beat Klitschko and won the title, and then you kind of went off the rails, and I thought you were just partying. You know, when I had heard about it, I thought, well, guy made a shitload of money, became the heavyweight champion, all the pressure in the press and all the craziness. But it was more than that.
It was more than that. It started off like I'd suffered with mental health problems my whole life, but I didn't know what it was because I never had no education on the matter. And it wasn't until after the Klitschko fight, a very massive high, then I had to have a even worse low, lowest low that anyone could ever have. I'd wake up and I think, why did I wake up this morning? This is coming from a man who had everything, money, fame, glory, titles, a wife, a family, kids, everything. But I felt as if I had nothing. I felt there was an empty, gaping hole that was just filled with gloom and doom, and it just was one bad thing happened to me after another. Within 7 days, the IBF stripped me of their title because I couldn't defend against Glazkov, who was a nobody, because I had a rematch clause with Vladimir. But the IBF wasn't expecting me to beat Vladimir. So they chucked that clause in there anyway, thinking Vladimir's going to win and he'll defend against Glazkov. But because I won, they stripped me of the belt, which was none of my reason.
Within 7 days of the fight?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
How can they require you to fight within 7 days?
No, they didn't, but they required me to go into negotiations.
And you didn't. So just not going into negotiations to sign, they stripped you within 7 days?
Yeah, but they knew I couldn't go into negotiations because of a rematch clause.
Boxing's a dirty business.
So I was stuck in between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. That was one belt gone. And then my team and Klitschko's team were carrying on about where the fight was going to be. It was going to be on a cruise ship in Dubai. It was going to be here. It was going to be there. Time was dragging on.
A cruise ship?
A cruise ship, yeah. There was some Arab billionaire who wanted to make this fight an exclusive fight for him and his buddies.
No.
Yeah.
Come on.
Seriously. This fight was heading for a cruise ship.
That fucking oil money, man.
They've got some money,
Christ.
but listen, if they can afford it, do it. That's what I say.
That would have been the most hilarious scenario ever for a world heavyweight title fight. A bunch of Arab billionaires on a cruise ship. Wow. So they strip you of the IBF belt. You go in a negotiation with Klitschko for the rematch. How come the rematch never happened?
The rematch didn't happen initially because I went over on my ankle in training. I was in Holland training for the rematch, and I was running up on heavy terrain, and I went over on my ankle, sprained my ankle quite badly, so we had to postpone the fight. And but by the time I was off, like say 3 months, getting this ankle right and all that, I just didn't want to do it anymore, if you know what I mean. I didn't have the desire. The fire wasn't burning no longer to fight. And I was suffering with depression the whole time. Even in training camp, before I sprained my ankle, I was depressed as depressed could be on a daily basis. And I'm thinking, why am I feeling like this? I don't have no reason to feel like it. Some people will say, oh, well, it's attention seeking or whatever. But unless you've experienced what I'm saying, it's sort of impossible to understand where I've been or where I've come from. And it just went from bad to worse. I hit the drink heavily on a daily basis. I hit the drugs. I was out all night partying with women of the night and not coming home. And, you know, I didn't care about boxing. I didn't care about living. I just wanted to die. And I was going to have a good time doing it while I was doing it. I used to drink and take drugs to get away from the depression, because when I was drunk or high, then I wouldn't think about being depressed. I thought about I'm a boxing champion, or I feel great. But as we know, when the drink wears off, it only leaves you with a bad hangover and feeling even more depressed. For someone who suffers with mental health, the worst thing we can do to escape it is take drugs or alcohol.
But yeah, that's the most common approach.
And that's the common approach because people, we don't know, because it's not spoke about. And this is where I want to spread the word on mental health, so when other people are in this position in the future, they know where to go and they know what to do, because there's a blueprint.